Year 2, Week 10, November football. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome back to another DNS address. Ladies and gentlemen, we've officially reached November football. This is where rankings get real. Conference races get tightened. Bowl dreams become math problems, and every mistake suddenly feels twice as expensive. Week 10 gave us exactly that. Georgia Southern and Troy combined for 92 points in a ranked user versus user shootout. South Florida dropped 73 and now has two players inside the top 4 of the Heisman race. Georgia Tech moved to 9-0 and continues marching through everybody placed in front of them. Mississippi State responded from an 88-7 2-week beating with a win over Auburn. Texas State moved one step closer to 500. Sacramento State became bowl eligible, and John Varello produced 257 yards and 4 touchdowns in a loss. Sometimes college football makes absolutely no sense. This is part of the season where contenders get remembered and pretenders get exposed. Welcome to week 10. Let's get into it. Our headline of the week is Georgia Southern wins the shootout in Troy. Number 18, Georgia Southern traveled to number 20, Troy, for the biggest user versus user matchup of year 2. 2 ranked teams, 2 conference contenders, and by the end of it, defense had become more of a suggestion. Georgia Southern wins 50-42. Weston Bryan delivered when the stage got bigger. 18 for 24, 265 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Kam Mikell came up huge with 6 receptions for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. Theo Todd gave the Eagles 89 receiving yards out of the backfield. Woodgett rushed for 83. J.J. Bradley scored twice, and then the weirdness started. Dre Kirkpatrick Jr. recorded 15 tackles and an interception. Then he recovered a fumble and returned it 62 yards for a touchdown. Tripp Bryant connected from 56, and Troy somehow surrendered a safety on a kick return, a safety on a kick return. There are plays you spend all week preparing for. That is not one of them. Troy fought all the way back. Jordan Lovett rushed for 184 yards and a touchdown. Gavin Griffin added 75 yards and another score, and the Trojans' defense provided 14 points of its own. Lonnie Smith returned an interception, 40 yards for a touchdown, and Myles Graham returned a fumble, 28 yards for another on back-to-back possessions. Troy scored twice on defense, ran for more than 250 yards, put 42 points on the board, and still lost. That is how wild this game became. Georgia Southern improves to 8-1 and climbs to number 16. Troy falls to 8-2 and drops out of the rankings. The Eagles travel to Marshall next week. Troy travels to Coastal. But make no mistake, this was one of the games of the year. User versus user, ranked versus ranked, and the Eagles were able to walk out with the win. South Florida apparently dislikes normal scores. Number 6, South Florida traveled to North Texas. The Bulls win 73-13. 73. At this point, we may need to stop describing these as football scores and start calling them South Florida scores. MVB Jr. completed 18 of 38 passes for 214 and 4 touchdowns. He did throw 2 picks as well. Henry Hasselback came in and completed all of his passes for 65 yards and another touchdown. And Joe Jackson continued building his Heisman resume. 24 carries, 167 yards, 3 touchdowns. Nothing crazy. Just another casual 3-touchdown afternoon for the number 1 player in the Heisman race. But Joe Jackson is no longer the only bull in the Heisman tension. Shelton Sampson Jr. also went off with 15 receptions, 176 yards, 4 touchdowns. 4. That performance moved Sampson to number 4 on the watch. South Florida now has 2 players in the top 4. Joe Jackson at 1, Sampson at 4. Good luck dividing the votes in Tampa. The defense looked and forced chaos as well. 4 sacks, 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, a block kick. Israel Boyce returned an interception, 35 yards for a touchdown, and Jaquan Smith returned another punt return, 76 yards for another score. Offense, defense, special teams, everybody ate. South Florida improves the 8-1, moves to number 8. Navy visits next week. And the Bulls are not simply trying to win the American anymore. They're trying to force themselves into a national postseason conversation. Georgia Tech gets to 9. Number 2, Georgia Tech travels for another road test. And once again, handled business. The Yellow Jackets win 45-17. Klutz threw for 239 yards and a touchdown. The passing game was sturdy. The running game was destructive. Kuma carried the ball 15 times for 195 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's 13 yards per carry. Chad Alexander also added another 33 and a touchdown. Manuel Addison caught 6 passes for 62 yards in the score. And Georgia Tech's defense, you may ask, 8.5 sacks. Yes, 8.5. The opposing quarterback spent more time being chased than throwing the football. Matt Sauro led the unit with 11 tackles, 2 of those for loss. Georgia Tech improves to 9-0. Still number 2, still perfect, still in complete control of their college football playoff destiny. At this point, Georgia Tech does not need help. It doesn't need chaos. It doesn't need another team to lose. It just needs to keep winning. 9 down, the perfect season rolls. Mississippi State gets off the mat. Let's remember when Mississippi State entered Week 10. Alabama, loss. LSU, loss. Combined scores over those 2 games, 88-7. Then Auburn came to Starksville, and the Bulldogs finally punched back. Mississippi State wins 30-27. Max Coolidge completed 28 of 36 passes for 275 yards and 2 touchdowns. Paris Hurd Davis, you may ask? He returned to form. He had 17 carries, 126 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 receptions, 44 more yards. PhD was back in session. Marquise Johnson was outstanding as well. He had 14 receptions, 165 yards, and 2 touchdowns. 14 catches is not getting open. That's being a permanent residency of that secondary. The game was not clean. Colin McLaughlin missed a field goal. He had another one blocked, and he missed an extra point. Mississippi State still found a way. After 2 brutal road losses that mattered, the Bulldogs improved to 5-4 and because the SEC has apparently decided Mississippi State has not suffered enough, the Bulldogs travel to number 10 Oklahoma next week. One more win gets State bowl eligible, and they'll have to earn that one. Murillo dominates and Old Dominion doesn't. Coastal Carolina traveled to Old Dominion and delivered one of the surprises of Week 10. Coastal wins 51-33. Old Dominion has now lost 3 of their last 4 games. And here's the strange part, though. John Barillo may have played one of the best games of the season. 29 carries, 197 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns, 11 receptions, 60 receiving yards. That's 257 from scrimmage and 4 scores. Barillo does get named the National Offensive Player of the Week again. He remains number 2 in the Heisman race, and Old Dominion still lost by 18. Ricky Burns threw for 245 and also threw 3 interceptions. One of those became a 32-yard pick six from Coastal's corner, Luke Evans. Evans finished with 2 interceptions on the day. The Monarchs' defense managed only 1 sack. This is the problem. Old Dominion's star player is becoming a Heisman level. The team around him is no longer matching that level of consistency. Old Dominion falls to 6-3. App State is on the board next week for them. The Monarchs are already bowl eligible, but this season started 5-0 with championship expectations. There's still time to finish strong, but the correction needs to happen now. Sacramento State finds another way. Akron traveled to Sacramento State. The Hornets survived 24-21. Sam Babcock threw for 285 yards and a touchdown. He also threw 2 picks. Rainey scored on the ground. Golly produced 87 total yards. Moses caught 4 passes for 73 yards. Zielinski added 49 yards. The defense recorded a sack, an interception, and forced a fumble. Nothing about this game was dominant, but Sacramento State found a way. With the victory, the Hornets improved to 6-3. That means bowl eligibility. Considering where some of the early season quarterback performances were headed, this is an accomplishment worth recognizing. Sacramento State has gone from throwing interceptions like complimentary t-shirts to 6 victories. That is growth. The Hornets continue moving forward with another important game ahead. Texas State keeps fighting back. San Diego State traveled to Texas State. The Bobcats win a shootout 45-38. Rising threw for 228 and 2 touchdowns. He also threw 2 picks. Cole Pryor was once again the engine. 18 carries, 194 yards, 3 touchdowns. LaKay Leon Graves added 6 receptions for 125 yards in a score. The defense recorded 4 sacks and a forced fumble. Texas State improves to 4-5. Remember, this team started 0-4. Since then, 4 wins in 5 games. The Bobcats are now 2 victories away from bowl eligibility. And next week brings an enormous opportunity. Number 14, Boise State comes to Texas State. This is exactly the kind of game that can change the narrative of the season. Central Michigan makes it to Central Michigan travel to Bowling Green, looking to build on its first victory. And based on the updated record, the Chippewas did exactly that. The Chippewas improved to 2-7. Quincy Snead threw for 346, despite being sacked 7 times. 7. At that point, the offensive line owes the quarterback dinner. I mean, come on. Vadi caught 8 passes for 141. Bush added 9 catches for 81. Von Blue and Trev Moore each found the end zone on the ground. The Central Michigan defense added 2 sacks and a blocked kick. The Chippewas started 0-6. They have now won 2 of their last 3. The season is not where they wanted it to be, but the directions change. Buffalo visits next week, and now Central Michigan has an opportunity to build something resembling a streak. Northern Illinois falls again. Northern Illinois traveled to San Jose State and fell 45-13. Brayshawn Brown threw for 239 and a touchdown. Elijah Porter produced 158 total yards and scored on the ground. Caleb Hack caught 6 passes for 78 yards and a touchdown. The defense recorded 4 sacks. The Northern Illinois Huskies could not keep pace. The Huskies do fall to 1-8. Nevada visits next week. At this point, Northern Illinois is not playing for bowl positioning and is playing for momentum, for development, for something positive to carry out the rest of year 2. There is still football left. Make it matter. Our stock ups this week is number 16, Georgia Southern. 8 wins, a ranked user victory on the road, and another major step forward in the Sun Belt race. Number 8, South Florida, 73 points. Top 2 of the 4 Heisman candidates and another dominant performance. Number 2, Georgia Tech, 9-0. That's the entire argument. Mississippi State, after getting embarrassed in consecutive weeks, the Bulldogs responded and beat Auburn. This is how you stop a slide. And Texas State from 0-4 to 4-5. The season suddenly has life. Let's keep it going. Our need more film of this week is Old Dominion's turnovers, 3 interceptions, another pick 6. John Barillo can't do everything, but he apparently is determined to try. Northern Illinois, the offense has flashed, the defense has flashed. The complete game just has not arrived yet. And Troy's defense, 42 points, should keep you in almost any game, but giving up 50 makes that difficult. Our Week 10 honors, our National Offensive Player of the Week was John Barillo. Our Defensive Player of the Week is Dre Kirkpatrick from Georgia Southern. Our Built Not Given Award of the Week goes to Mississippi State. Think about the previous 2 weeks. 34-7 at Alabama. 54-0 at LSU. 88 points allowed. 7 points scored. That can break a season. Mississippi State came home, faced Auburn, and found a way to win 30-27. It wasn't perfect. Special teams struggled. There were mistakes. PhD rushed for 126 yards. Johnson caught 14 passes. Coolidge threw 2 touchdowns, and Mississippi State finished the game. After 2 weeks of getting knocked down, the Bulldogs got back up. That win was built. It was not given. Our Heisman race, Joe Jackson leads this week. John Barillo's 2 this week. And Shelton Sampson Jr. comes in. Our Week 11 spotlights. Number 16, Georgia Southern at Marshall. The Eagles are coming off an emotional ranked user victory. That makes this exactly the type of road game coaches worry about. Celebrate the Troy win. Put it away. We've got Navy at number 8, South Florida. Joe Jackson, Shelton Sampson Jr., Michael Van Buren Jr. against the Navy team that will try to shorten the game and control possession. Style makes fights. Number 2, Georgia Tech has another road test. Georgia Tech takes its undefeated record back on the road at 9-0. Every opponent gets the same opportunity. Be the team that ruins perfection. At Mississippi State at number 10, Oklahoma, the Bulldogs need one more victory for bowl eligibility. Unfortunately, number 10, Oklahoma stands on the other sideline. Welcome back to the SEC. And number 14, Boise State at Texas State. Texas State started 0-4. Now the Bobcats have a ranked opponent coming to town with bowl hopes still alive. This could be one of the biggest opportunities of the season. Appalachian State visits Old Dominion. Troy travels to the Coastal. Buffalo visits Central Michigan. Nevada visits Northern Illinois. And Sacramento State continues to push towards a strong finish. Ladies and gentlemen, Week 10 reminded us what November football looks like. Georgia Southern had a ranked user shutout and climbed to 16. South Florida scored 73 and now has 2 players in the top 4 of the Heisman race. Georgia Tech improves to 9-0. Mississippi State got off the mat. Texas State moved within one game of 500. Sacramento State reached 6 wins. Central Michigan continues showing signs of life. John Burrell delivered another National Player of the Week performance, and Troy learned one of the oldest lessons in football. Sometimes 42 points still is not enough. We have now reached the championship stretch. Every ranking matters. Every conference game matters. Every turnover matters. And every team still chasing something has fewer chances left to get it. This is November. As they say in college football, championships are won in November. So protect the football, win the line of scrimmage, survive the road, and when the game gets weird enough to include a safety on a kick return, just keep playing. In the Department of Natural Selection, you select, we collect, built, not given.